Hi there. So I'm not thinking of continuing my YouTube channel since I lack the skills of a wordsmith and I don't understand a lot of words. I do have a dictionary I think behind me, but I never can be bothered to really read that things most of the time. Anyway, here's the only other video I'm going to do, and this is going to be talking about Disney's latest attempt on a superhero movie. And by the look of things, it's going to be not as a mega flop as their last attempt, which was Sky High. Now, we should remember why Sky High failed was that it was not created by Pixar. As mean as this sounds, but all the imagination and originality has gone into Pixar. And the rest of Disney doesn't tend to be as imaginative sometimes as Pixar most of the time. But anyway, let's see if Disney's supposed inspired superhero movie based off the Marvel comic of the same name from the 1980s, Big Hero 6, will be a success or flop.
Confusing, this lack of self-control I fear is never ending. Controlling, I can't seem to find myself again. My walls are closing in.
Not a sense of confidence, I'm convinced that there's just too much pressure to take.
I felt this way before, so insecure.
So our story in this movie follows basically Hero. Now, I couldn't get much of a personality trait for some of the characters, since they only give us a bit of a bite-sized chunk of the pieces of the movies. But I believe, due to the fact that Baymax, the other character we'll get to, says he's going through puberty, so I believe he's going to be a smart-ass and a bit of a wise-ass of the things. Which I generally like those kind of character traits. He's also going to be a robotics genius. Not just at robotics, but that's going to be, I think, his main specialty. He uses this mainly robotic knowledge that he has really with things to mainly create underground battle robots that he always wins at these tournaments. His older brother, Takashi, sees this and decides to put his younger brother's intelligence to better use and shows him the institution of technology and what he does there. This is where he meets the other friends and the other cast members. Now, let's talk about Baymax. Now, originally in the comic books, he was built by Hero as to be a bodyguard. Here, however, he's built now by his older brother. He is a helper robot, and this is already shown by his unique design as being a giant inflatable balloon. And also his nifty little gadgets like his scanners, his shock pedals, which makes me wonder if he's going to use them at all in a battle scene or not. And generally his personality, which adds to some of the greatest hilarious moments, since he has such a very simplistic nature of things, as he only wants to help people. In many ways he reminds me a bit of Crichton in a way, only if Crichton was a big chubby white guy. Anyway. And also the other things that, but this is a bit obvious in my opinion, doesn't really need to be too badly mentioned, is that he's also, like I said, pudgy, so this adds also to a lot of physical based hilarity. We should also talk about some of the other characters, and this is where my whole question of the inspired bit comes from, because my understanding of something to be inspired by is generally not to take the name and maybe even similar designs of a character from another medium. My understanding of inspired is generally to take some themes or ideals from that same subject matter and use them, or medium, or whatever you want to call it. So Honeylove. She is very close to her comic book counterpart. Just like her comic book counterpart, they both use a purse, but the power has been changed very slightly. She now uses chemical-based devices. And she will be also the group's light optimist, always seeing the bright side despite however bad the things get. Now we should get on to the straight man of the group, Wasabi. Now Wasabi is this neat freak of the group. He keeps everything nice and orderly. His also main specialty in the group is to use these laser beam devices on his battlesuit. I wasn't sure if it was important to mention the fact that they're battlesuits, because I'm sure most of you have probably watched the trailers, so I didn't really bother to mention it. If you're just here new to this and you haven't seen Big Hero 6, just quick mention, Hero just boots some of them battlesuits. Okay, let's get back to Wasabi. So Wasabi, like I said, uses these laser swords, he's a neat freak, he's going to keep everything neat and tidy, and he's probably going to bring back the group to reality pointing out how stupid this thing is doing and how dangerous it is all getting and how out of control it is getting. Now let's get to the comedy relief, which is Finn, or is he also known as Finzilla. Now he's very close, what I've seen of his design, a bit to his comic counterpart. Now he's this laid-back comic guy who's really, I think, also a big monster fan of, you know, those big stompy monster movies. I don't know what the exact name for them. Now in the comic books he could originally change into a giant Godzilla-style sort of monster. Here, however, he is dressed up in a big monster-style sort of battlesuit. Now the problem I have with his battlesuit in general is, firstly, he doesn't really have very good prehensible fingers, I should say, or hands, or what do you want to call them. And I don't exactly understand how he moves in the suit, and head-wise, I should say. It reminds me of the old Batman sort of costumes from, you know, what's his name? Don't worry, if I forget anyone's name, I'll just put it right down here. Anyway, because, like I said, in the old Batman movies, he couldn't move his head originally because of the stupid design of the costume. And this is what I'm wondering about Finzilla too, because I don't understand how he's going to be able to move his head in that costume, because if he has to move like this, it's not going to be very practical in the middle of a battle situation. Now, our other character of some importance note, well, really important notes, is Gogo Tanakashi. Now, Tanakani? I can't remember. I probably say it. Now, what is interesting about this character is that it's the strong silent type, but what is interesting that the choice is that it's not a male character. Instead, it's a female character. And by look of things, I think she's going to have a very tomboyish sort of personality, especially by her design, as they're giving her a leather jacket and this very tough look, especially with the bubblegum. I think it's trying to make her tough looking, which I don't fully understand why blowing bubblegum makes you look tough. But anyway, now the interesting thing that they're trying to do with this movie is combine Japanese and American cultures together. As notably was the setting, which is France Tokyo, which is a combination of, obviously, you know, Francisco and Tokyo. Now the animation style doesn't seem like it has changed much from Frozen. They're still going with characters with very large, very expressible eyes. And the characters do have a very soft sort of design a little bit about them, but they seem a little bit more solid than the original Frozen design. And this shouldn't be surprised, since the directors who made Frozen, like I said, I don't even know, I'm agreeing with myself, I've probably written this down somewhere, basically from the same guys who made Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen and Tangled. Now, Tangled and Frozen were alright in my opinion. I thought most of those do very heavily clung with the whole Disney, I'm a princess and I kind of need saving blah blah blah, which kind of makes me worried that they might, you know, maybe Disney might try to shoot in some sort of, I don't know, Disney unnecessary trope about the whole thing, which I really hope they don't do that, because I would hate if they have a moment in there where the characters all break up after they fail in their first attempt to stop the bad guy, and then we have this moment with sad movies about when you break apart, something depressing, blah blah blah. No, we don't need a moment like that. And thankfully, hopefully they don't have any musical moments. Oh, I just despise the musical moments from Frozen. Okay, they were right, some of the songs were good, but half the time I just wanted to throw something in them just to get them shut up. Oh, you get the bloody point. You have an issue. Shut up. Be done. It's got a 1 minute line. You don't have to sing about it, okay? Anyway, one of the things that did make me a bit worried is that when I picked up a pamphlet from one of my local cinemas, they already were advertising the toys a bit heavily, so this did ring some alarm bells that Disney might, you know, try to skip out on a bit on the story and just more hoping the advertisement for younger children, which I hope they don't do this. Now, the other thing I mentioned, this is based off a Marvel comic, which is interesting because there might be some Marvel tropes in it, which will be interesting to see. Like I already mentioned, the big brother has already died, or older brother, whatever's the appropriate word here. So this definitely seems like to be sort of the Marvel trait of, you know, like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, as I should use his proper name. Sort of, you know, story trope, you know, was great responsibility, was a great power. No, it's great responsibility. No, with great power comes with great responsibility. Anyway, so that's gonna be good. But the interesting thing to my understanding is I don't think Marvel's gonna have as big as an influence as it did with its other movies. So I don't think we're actually gonna see the Marvel logo on it, so which is gonna be interesting. And neither are we gonna see a animated version of Stan Lee, which would be a shame. But it'd be awesome if we could see him. Now, one of the more interesting things I read off Wikipedia, and yes, I will move away from reading anything on Wikipedia, is that supposedly they have got some consultants from Marvel and Disney to work on this, because, you know, Disney property, Marvel property. But there was supposedly a rift between the two, since some of the Marvel workers wanted to make this more for a mature audience. And I really like this idea. I think it would have been cool if they aimed this movie for more younger adults, giving it more of a mature sort of storyline. But however, whether it was the executives, the high-ups, or the generally directors of these movies just didn't agree with it, whatever it was, it created a big huge rift. And eventually they solved it, and they came back to the conclusion of making it for young children. Which is a bit of a sad thing, but what can you do? Because honestly, I think this would have been a good opportunity for Disney to do something brand new and something else that most of the other competition isn't really doing much. Now, I think that's everything I can say about Frozen. I'm sorry about my terrible wording and the repeating of words, but like I said, this will be my last video. Wiedersehen, hopefully you enjoyed, and please don't